Hello, good morning, and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. What is happening to Ghana and its good people? In the last elections, some 8 people were killed, largely by state security. And it seems only a political party is concerned and demanding action. Others have been engaged in a debate as to the number of people that were killed. Now, as many as 10 people have been killed by the military in Boku, and it seems a normal occurrence without a word from the president yet, not the Minister of Defense and not the Minister of the Interior. And the citizens are quiet. The debt exchange and the new deadline and revised terms, what do they mean? Particularly for pensioners and individual bond holders. The Transparency International 2022 Corruption Perception Index, that report reveals Ghana for the 3rd consecutive time has failed to make any progress in the fight against corruption. What does that mean? Since the Afrobarometer, led by the CDD in 2019, found that Ghanaians will not report corruption for fear of some form of retaliation. They rank corruption 8th. And yet, it's not a priority on their problem lists. They said corruption was somewhat or a lot worse. And that situation has remained 3 years. The computer selection placement for senior high schools, there's corruption there. How does the Education Ministry and stakeholders, how do they fix the cracks wherein first or grade 8 schools are on sale by individuals arrested through the work of the 4th Estate of the Media Foundation for West Africa, and the people whom they work with can be traced. We deal with these matters in a bit. Welcome back, and here is Samson's take, the curse of leadership in Africa. The UN Environment Programme tells us what we live and know, that Africa is rich in natural resources ranging from arable land, water, oil, natural gas, minerals, forest, and wildlife. The continent has 40% of the world's gold and up to 90% of its chromium and platinum. The largest reserves of cobalt, diamonds, platinum, and uranium in the world are in Africa, with 65% of the world's arable land. This means Africa ought to be rich, not the symbol of poverty and underdevelopment. It must feed the world and never be faced with hunger and starvation because Russia is at war with Ukraine. Ghana's economy must not collapse because of bombs thrown in countries millions of miles away. The little of the wealth that is exploited is stolen and taken abroad. Africa's leaders grow richer while their citizens seek greener pastures abroad or die starving. They go abroad cap in hand, borrow so much, and in Ghana, $3 billion is unaccounted for each year. Africa's youth, with a chance to get an education in Europe and China, are helping build their economies. Ghana does not produce even 1% of the millions of tons of poultry it consumes. The African Union's Agenda 2063 and the similar ones before this don't reflect beyond the paper they write these goals on. Mo Ibrahim reports that in 2017, 53% of surveyed members of extremist groups in Africa were between 17 and 26 years old when they joined, and the offer of employment was the most frequently cited incentive at the time of recruitment. In 2015, 86% of all African educated physicians working in the US were trained in Egypt, Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa. 1 in 10 doctors working in the UK comes from Africa. In that year, 2015, doing a documentary for the BBC, I found, shockingly, that Ghanaian doctors in New York alone outnumbered the total number of doctors in Ghana. More than 60% of Africa's population is unenergetic youth whose leaders have spent decades, generations, promising them heaven and delivering them hell. Will Ghana spend money on the 6th of March to celebrate independence, or the fact that it is still independence? Instead of thinking of an agricultural revolution, for example, and jobs, we are busily building a cathedral on the foundation of lies at a time when the government says it cannot pay you your debt because it is broke. Some clergy who have lost their faith have joined politicians to lie that the state was not spending on rental accommodation and new buildings to relocate judges. They lied. They lied through their teeth that judges' bungalows that were being flattened for the cathedral were dilapidated, when in fact the majority of those bungalows were less than 5 years old, while others were even yet to be completed and were being constructed with loans, your money, taxpayers' money. They even lied to the Supreme Court that state funds will not be used, only to turn around to tell citizens the state will only provide an unquantified seed money. Religious leaders, who must be the voice of reason, speaking out and pushing back against corrupt politicians, have lost their voice. Those of them who, like Esau, have sold their faith and conscience for a pot of soup, a brown envelope, or board membership, deceive themselves that people don't know why they join their president to call the taxpayer some godless, rebellious Tobiases and Sambalats. Chairperson of Transparency International, Delia Rubio, notes that, quote, corruption has made our world a more dangerous place, as governments have collectively failed to make progress against it. They fuel the current rise in violence and conflict and endanger people everywhere. The only way out is for states to do the hard work, rooting out corruption at all levels to ensure governments work for all people, not just an elite few. end quote. Dr. Randiabe puts it this way, quote, every country that has a large and growing army of people who have nothing to lose is a country that is facing danger, end quote. Please be reminded of the preamble of the Constitution that this democracy is built on, quote, the principle that all powers of government spring from the sovereign will of the people, and that Article 1 commands that, quote, sovereignty resides in the people in whose name and for whose welfare the powers of government, are to be exercised, end quote. You will have no need to caution the military about anything if you pursue the instruction in Article 36 that, quote, the most secure democracy is the one that assures the basic necessities of life for its people as a fundamental duty. The curse of leadership in Africa must end or will spell our doom. And that is my take. Now, this show is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go, Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneur leaders for Africa, Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years, My Way Insurance, dial *165# on the MTN to join, and St. Thomas Eye Hospital, providing excellence in eye care. We'll be right back, and we begin with a question why 10 people have been killed, 10 Ghanaian lives have been killed by the military, and it seems normal, just as 8 people were killed in the elections and nothing absolutely is done. We'll be right back.
Boko issue came in because, you know, our hotspot now is the jihadis in the region, the jihadis across the border, and also the Boko problems. So those are the things that we discussed. Of course, there are security matters, and I can't tell you what we discussed. It's very sad that people have lost their lives. It's something that RESEC, we want to know what really happened. And we are going to. I also want to say that this troubles in Boko is taking too long. We have been doing our best to make sure that there is peace in Boko. The Interior Minister, the Minister for Defense, CDS, and all the big people, IGP, they're all here for us to see if we can prepare peace. And I think it lasted for a bit, and then it started all over again. If you sit down and you think about it, you really don't know the reason why it is getting this way. And I think that probably there are also criminality in it. There's politics in it, criminality in it. People have their own reasons why they probably don't want this to end. So I want to appeal through this medium that, look, let's give peace a chance, because Boko is virtually.
Right, so let's begin by going to the phone lines and to speak with the MP for the area, Mahama Yarga, who has filed a petition at Shraj. As you may have followed in the course of the week, the military high command issued a statement admitting to neutralizing, that's the word they use, neutralizing 6 men. Then they give accounts of various things that have occurred whilst they are doing their operations in the area. Boko is becoming a ghost town. Important installation, businesses, banks, slates, all of them, they have moved away from that place. They are now situated in the Bogatanga, and it's a long journey for pensioners, for example, to move from Boku to Boga. And the road is terrible, terrible. Now, Mahama Yarga has a different account on how the people were killed. He names all the 10 of them. For example, one of them, Indego Mumuni, he says he's a 39-year-old man, and he's married. He's got one wife, he's got 5 children. His father is deceased, his mother is deceased, and this is how he died. That he died of gunshot wounds inflicted by the military. And where did it happen? He was in his garden, watering his garden plants, and they killed him. Another one, Smiler Jafaru, also is said to have been burned in a room full of hay where he had taken refuge. The incident occurred in his house. The deceased mother resisted, and that is how they shot her in the hand. So his father has also been killed by the military, and his mother sustained wounds in her left hand from the gunshots of the military and is receiving medical treatment. I go through the story as in the different accounts from the member of parliament, and you find a very disturbing story different from what the military is saying. There is this Abumbaina Madi, 33, has 3 wives, 6 children. Okay, his parents are alive. He's a motorcycle mechanic. He died of gunshot wounds by the military. The military men wearing military uniforms were seen chasing him on foot, while some were in an armored vehicle chasing and shooting at him. There are a couple others who are said to have been killed in this same style. Thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
How come your account is different from what the military, the officials that we are supposed to hear from, their accounts?
Well, I mean, let's start by expressing our condolences to the families of the bereaved, and to let them know that we are with them in these very difficult times. I don't expect the military to admit that they did the things that they did. I mean, they find a nice way of capturing it, that they were liquidating people. I'm not sure that is the job of members of the Ghana Armed Forces, given the level of training that they have received. I don't see in their media statement that the people they so-called liquidated were firing guns and that they retrieved, these ammunitions from them after the so-called liquidation exercise.
That is instructive. That is instructive. That they do not talk about retrieving any ammunition, but exactly. they said they were shot at. They spoke about one guy who approached them with a cutlass and also needed to be neutralized. And Boku is known to have residents, almost all of whom keep guns.
Well, not almost all, but let me just say that they haven't given evidence that they retrieved any weapons. As for a cutlass, I mean, do you shoot and kill somebody for brandishing a cutlass? Which I dispute. So the point is this: what I've put out there are eyewitness accounts of exactly what happened. I have the names of the eyewitnesses. I have their contacts. The communities, I've instructed them. They've gathered the witnesses. They have the names, the contacts, everything. And trust me, I insist that the Commission on Human Rights and Absolute Justice should go and investigate and establish exactly what happened. You will see that what I have put out there.
So you are going to be inviting these witnesses to corroborate
when
as
the
eyewitnesses.
When the investigators of Shrike go to those communities, they will meet those witnesses, and then they will tell them exactly what they saw. They will see the location. See, the locations are significant. Anybody who is familiar with the conflict in Boku knows that if you told me that, you shot and neutralized somebody at a particular location, I will not be in a hurry to go public in condemning you, because I know that those locations are hotspots, and very often they are the venues of intense exchanges between the two feuding sides. So I will do some more, research. But where these things happen, I can assure you that anybody who knows Boku knows that they are so far away from the centers of action that when you chase people to that location, you don't need to neutralize them, as they put it. And so these are just clear, brutal killings.
Right. So, Honorable, I will come to the question of whether this should be a SRAJ investigation or we need, a constitutional committee or commission to go into this. These are 10 lives, 10 lives involved. But, for example, there are a number of them, including Imoro Salifu, that your eyewitnesses tell you that he was shot by the soldiers in front of his house at about 8 p.m. on January 26. Now, why will the military invade someone's house and shoot them without any provocation?
Yeah,
or any cause, not provocation.
These things have been happening. If you notice, 8 p.m. Or after 8 p.m. Would have been curfew hours in Boku. So they will tell you, the person was outside during curfew hours. Look at the age of the man. Somebody at age 60 will hardly be out there fighting. If you had shot a 30-year-old man and said, he was out there fighting at 8 p.m., but a 60-year-old man will not be holding a gun, will not be out there fighting. A 59-year-old man, most unlikely to be out there fighting, even if you saw him during curfew. Your job as a paid professional military officer is not to kill at first instance. You could arrest him. You could inflict some, pain, slaps here and there, threaten him, get him to go into his house. But how does he end up being killed simply because he was outside during curfew hours? And it just didn't start with those two people. About a month ago, a woman was equally killed in Sabongari, simply because she was out during curfew hours. And so I have restrained myself when it comes to those matters, because I think
isn't it difficult for yourself to believe those stories so easily that someone for a curfew offense is shot and killed?
No, it happened. Just go to Sabongari and ask. This lady, a woman, she was shot and killed during curfew hours. And when I did my investigation, I found out that she cooks and sells food during the day. And so sometimes she has to prepare the food late into the night. And because of curfew hours, she passes somewhere and then commutes back home, tries to meander through the houses and get home. And then early in the morning, she wakes up and now sells what she cooked over the night.
Yeah, so that's...
And so she became a victim of just military having noticed her out there during curfew hours.
So that's my question. If you breach curfew hours, you are not a candidate for death. You are not to be killed.
Exactly.
And these are professional military and police officers. Why would they shoot and kill because you have breached a curfew?
Exactly. And so it is this level of brutality that we are talking about. And that is why I'm saying that we need to investigate it. And you asked me whether it should be a commission. What have we gotten out of all these commissions that were set up by the president in the past to investigate killings? What happened? Nothing happened.
At least that signifies that signifies the enormity of the problem.
I don't think so. I want the truth out. I don't want some high-level exercise that will come to nothing. I believe the Human Rights Commission will do a very good job of establishing exactly what happened. And then they will take action to ensure that there are remedial measures. I don't want it political. I don't want the president's hand in it, so that at the end of the day, we turn around and then say, oh, it was political and this and that. This is a case of human rights violation. And under our constitution, the proper body to ascertain exactly what happened, given proper investigative powers. The same powers that a commission of inquiry would have anyway.
You are asking the SRAJ to make a finding of fact and simply make compensations to the relatives, surviving relatives of these people. But if this is found to be what it is, it's not a mere case of human rights violations. Those engaged would then have been deemed to have committed murder, and murder is prosecuted, and the sentence for it is that you are supposed to be hanged, even though you may go to jail for life.
However, it ends, I just want to make sure that the rights of my constituents are respected. If in the process the state decides after the commission has established the fact that it will prosecute them, so be it. Then it will deter people from needlessly taking the lives of innocent people in the name of trying to restore peace in Boko.
Once again, what is it that doesn't make you want to believe the military's account one bit?
Because citizens of Boko that I know will not lie to me, told me exactly what they saw, and they are ready to come forward before any institution and give eyewitness accounts of what they saw.
But these are the same citizens. These are the same citizens that we know have been killing each other and have been hoarding weapons for that purpose.
Well, the fact that somebody has held a weapon, has fought, doesn't mean that the person is incapable of speaking the truth about what they have seen. Like I told you, the military themselves, in their report, did not say that when we neutralize Mr. X, we retrieve AK-47. When we neutralize Mr. Y, we retrieve a G3.
That's obviously curious.
The only time that they talk about the weapon is a cutlass. So you confront a man who is wielding a weapon, a cutlass, with an armor car, and then, several soldiers, and you shoot and kill? How can you do that? How can Ghana be reduced to that?
And the reliefs you are seeking, very finally, is that what the lives of these people, are worth? 500,000 Ghana cedis each?
Well, I want the state to pay. The Human Rights Commissioner can have a different mechanism for determining what values we place on these lands. But I think that some compensation must go. Look, if you look at the people, somebody has been killed, he survived by 3 wives. Somebody has been killed, he survived by 2 wives. Somebody has been killed, he survived by 1 wife.
Exactly my point, Mr. Mahama Yarga. Exactly my point.
He has 7 children.
Exactly my point.
And we need to maintain these people. so that is why I say that they must be compensated, so that those of us who have who have to take care of these families, we have the wherewithal to take care of what they have left behind.
I am familiar with a case where a man had a crane fall on him. He's not dead. He's just been disabled. And his compensation is $1 million. People have lost their lives. They have dependents. And you say their lives, is worth compensating 500,000?
Well, we can say 2 million. We can say 3 million. At the end of the day, the Human Rights Commissioner will determine exactly what kind of compensation he thinks is appropriate.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Let me quickly try getting some brief updates from our correspondent, Albert. Sorry. Albert, thank you for joining us. Hello, Albert.
Hello, Samson.
Yes. I haven't been on that Boku Road for a very long time. The last time I did, I just stopped somewhere at Lanting, Apangas area. I saw that you have been there and you were soaked in dust. So people must come to Bolga for their basic banking needs and the rest of them because of the situation in Boku. Is that what is going on?
Okay, Samson. So let's start with the road. The road has now been constructed. The picture of me you saw covered in that is a Facebook memory from 2014.
Oh, great.
Great. Hello?
Great, go ahead.
Yes, so the road has been done up to the Boku township now, and it is very motorable. About 3 months ago, we did a story on the update of the road. So it's just around 70% complete, with the exception of culverts and other road markings that have to be done, and then the Boku township roads themselves, which have to be constructed. But about banking, yes, there are some banks in Boku, which we had sometime last year had closed temporarily, and people who were doing business with that bank have to be traveling to Bolga to be able to get banking services. There are some businesses, for instance, Senate had also threatened to move their office from Boku because their office was in the middle of town, and often their staff were getting caught in the middle of exchange of fire. The Presbyterian Hospital in Boku is also one. They haven't closed down, but the moderator for the Presbyterian Church of Ghana, when he visited Bolga to commission a psychiatric hospital, did tell us journalists that one of the things they may have to consider is to close down the hospital if the incessant gunshots and all that continue to go on. So life is not business as usual for most of the people of Boku. There are teachers who cannot go to work. There are nurses who cannot go to work.
Right.
And so, yes,
right.
that's the situation.
Now, for example, Mahama Yarge's account in his petition to Shraj, completely different from what the military tell us in their statement that they also issued, was it on Thursday or yes. Now, for example, he talks about people who were shot in front of their homes. The news editors here at Joy News give me information about seeing photographs of the bodies being together, as if people have been killed together, and not the case where Mahama Yarge's narration shows people who have been killed at separate places. What can you say about that?
Samson, so the pictures that we had, which you say the editors talked to you about, are pictures we covered at a press conference on Wednesday after the incident happened. We want to believe that the bodies were actually brought together because the people had been preparing to bring the media scene for the press conference. So by the time we got there, the bodies were already together when we took those pictures. Now, from the accounts that they also gave us, what they said was that they were all at different locations doing their normal morning activities when the soldiers came into the community. Some of them were chased after and brought under a mango tree and shot. This was
in fact, there's a story of one man who was supposed to be on top of the mango tree and seeking to pluck mango or whatever it was, and then he was shot.
Yes, the stories are different from different people because this doesn't just happen in one household. So that is why the accounts appear to be different, because we interviewed different people and they tell us different accounts of what they saw. But when we took the pictures, the bodies were already together. Now, the traditional authorities, together with the families of the people who were killed and the top security hierarchy, met that afternoon and they had a discussion, and they agreed that the bodies should be released to the families for burial according to Islamic principles.
Okay.
Now, the next day, the statement from the armed forces also came, and the Regional Coordinating Council, the Regional Security Council met that afternoon, and the decision they took was that now they have two accounts, different accounts of what exactly happened, and they will have to go on the ground to do their own investigation to ascertain exactly what happened.
All right, tell me in a minute, what's the atmosphere? How do the people feel about what is going on in their area, and on the back of the statement by the military high command as well?
So on the first day, the families of the people who were killed were very angry. You could tell when they addressed that press conference. A lot of them were not happy about what had happened. But subsequently, when they met with the security hierarchy together with the traditional authority and the RECSEC statement subsequently coming, it appears that it has calmed them a little bit. But they continue to insist that they want justice, because this is not something that should be swept under the carpet. And so when you speak to them, they continue to insist that they are waiting to hear what the Regional Security Council will do and what other human rights bodies who are watching what is happening in Boko are going to do about the situation. So yes, things are calm at the moment, but you get the sense that the people are not going to just let this go.
All right, Abesori, thank you very much. Abesori is Joy News correspondent in the Upper East region, and I'm getting some pictures and even videos, even as I talk to you. Some people there are sending, I don't even want to look at them. So obviously, there will be some body of evidence for the purposes of Shraj. Sorry, but we didn't intend to have you guys on this issue, but briefly, what do you say about the conflicting accounts?
Yeah, it's worrying, to say the least. You see?
Sorry, Martin Pebu is a lawyer and rights activist. Also, with him here in the studio is Alhassan S. Suhini. He's a member of parliament and also on the appointments committee of parliament. We will be joined by Kofi Bentel, who is lawyer and senior vice president, Imani Africa. I suppose he's already on. And as I said, Alhassan S. Suhini is MP Tamale North, deputy ranking lands and forestry and member appointments committee. Martin Pebu is lawyer and rights activist. And as you know, he is one of the couple of rebels for the Individual Bondholders Association of Ghana. He's the reason we have got some people facing, who have been dismissed from the NDA, National Development and Northern Development Authority. Some have been dismissed, and some are facing courts. We'll come to those issues when we get to the Corruption Perception Index.
That's why we must quickly.
People are worried why the chief executive himself. The deputies have been dismissed, but the chief executive, who is also indicted and also facing charges, has not been dismissed or suspended at least. So what do you say about the Boko situation?
Yeah. So it's worrying, and I know worrying is not strong enough. I mean, my heart bleeds. You know, when I was coming, I heard you reading how the various accounts and all that. I was like, no, why are we playing with people's lives? I mean, they've lost it. And so when I say playing, after even death, we have the temerity to, you know, give different accounts. I just hope that what you're saying, maybe the people were honest, but they were just mistaken. Because we can't do this. It should just be one plain truth. You see, and as you were recounting those deaths, then my mind came to the people who died in Techima, the Techima constituency, those who were killed there, the shooting by the soldiers, right? And then also the other parts of the country. You know, in the last election, we lost about 8 of our citizens.
Yeah.
But we can't continue doing this.
Actually, there's a member of parliament, deputy speaker, who said, what is it? They deserve to die.
Such, I don't know, barbarity.
He's still in parliament. You'll be voted back into parliament.
Yes, that's barbarity. How can we
I don't remember the last time he was made and forced to apologize for that, very reckless and heartless comment.
Yeah, so it tells you that our ethics have been thrown to the dogs. That's how come because elsewhere he would have resigned. Yeah, and I remember that statement now. We made noise about it, and that was it. Elsewhere he would have resigned. So it just tells you that our democracy is just sunk to the lowest. And so though we'll still come back to the Northern Development Authority, quickly, one sentence on it. The fact that the president is watching the chief executive still in office is also another sign. And the fact that Clara Napagatia Suleimana approved, the coordinator of the special initiatives at the office of the president, approved the transaction, and she is still in office, tells you that that's the state of our democracy. It's sunk so low.
The OSP didn't indict her.
But we
those who are indicted are those. So let me not get a diversion. Now, the military said, among other things, quote, information received from the National Investigation Bureau by the Operation Gongong team of the Ghana Armed Forces early this week indicates that passengers on board a yellow Kia Grand Bird bus with registration number so traveling from Accra to Mesiga were attacked by unknown gunmen around Pawolega and on the Boku highways. The gunmen fired through the tire and engine compartment of the vehicle. The bus is currently parked at Asylum Down, Boku Divisional Police Station for investigations to be conducted. Then they talk about another vehicle, Kia truck with registration, was hit, and the driver of the truck, Al-Hassan Abdallah, age 40, from the Gonja tribe, sustained a gunshot wound on the left foot. He is currently receiving treatment at the Presbyterian Hospital. Then they say again, February 1st, Wednesday, February 1, 2023, gunshots were heard around South Natinga in Boku. A patrol team rushed to the general area of the shooting, where a suspect, Abdul Malik Haruna, age 35, from the Mamprusi tribe, was arrested. He has since been handed over to the Boku police for further investigation. Here's my question. 3 separate incidents they narrate to us. How do you connect them to the killing of these 10? That they said they neutralized. We're talking about people who have been shot and killed. And the military statement is telling us about a Kia vehicle here and there and armed robbery. Well, how is it connected?
I don't get it. So the best I can make of it is that it means that the military can't be trusted at this stage. Yes, I'll go for it. And you see, it's based on previous incidents. As I said, the Techiman constituency one. We saw the videos, the military shooting, and till date, they've not owned up and accepted responsibility for it. Then you go back into our history. We all know, even till date, military, yes, thank you, Asawase, right? Then you see those people died. And
Asawase is where the police officers lied that the guns, the ammunition were from those people that they had killed or they had engaged. And it was found out that those were actually their own, that they only paraded to show that they retrieved them from the people, and it was not theirs.
Thank you.
Well, they got some 100,000 plus or so as compensation, 250,000.
50,000, which is bad. Yeah, so based upon this and our past history, and also even currently as we speak, the military are still used for some of these dirty operations. Yeah, you go and see the top hierarchy, the top brass, and they can go, even lands. Recently, in the course of this week, you see Trasaco and the military and all that. Yeah, they are lands. You see military on there trying to protect. So we've been using military for all manner of things. So based on their history, I won't go with them. No.
What will you say briefly about what is going on what must happen?
Yeah, good morning.
Shraj, is it enough?
Samson, good morning, Martin. Good morning to our viewers. Boku is a very tricky subject to discuss, and I don't say that lightly, especially when you consider some of the causes. It is attributed sometimes to political intervention, dating back to the 50s, through to the 60s, and then through to the 80s, the PNDC era. I mean, you will know about the Restoration of Chiefs Act of 1959. So political activists somehow, some way, have been blamed for their involvement in the Boku, case. And so it is a difficult subject for somebody like me to talk about. And I have had my fair share of being misunderstood or misinterpreted or taken out of context after I ran commentary on Boku. In March of last year, on the floor of Parliament, Samson, I made this observation about the brutalities that were reported, especially perpetuated by the military. And just looking through the Hansard, I'll quote what I said on the floor of Parliament when I made the point that the activities of the military, per my information, was turning them into a security threat. So those who were supposed to provide security, according to the information I was getting, was rather becoming a security threat themselves. And I'll just share with you a sentence in the contribution that I made on the floor of Parliament to illustrate the point that you make about the need for investigation into the different sides that we are being told, the MP side and the military side. Quote, "These soldiers go into homes and search, and when they find even a machete, they begin to harass the residents and make them pay money in some instances," unquote. This was according...
Machete in farming community?
That's the point that I'm coming to. A machete, Boku is predominantly a farming community. The information I got at the time was that even when they enter a home and they find a machete, they harass the people not until they pay money. They beat them, and in some cases, they have to pay money. And so I am not surprised that in this current narration, you are told that a man was shot dead because they found a machete on him.
No,
so,
I think they didn't just find the machete.
Yeah,
by their report,
he attempted to attack them with a machete.
Right.
But that's by their report. Yeah. But I'm saying that if you relate it to the information that was I was having at the time, there is some need for proper investigations to be carried out. In fact, after I made this contribution, the other side that got to me was that, look, the military were doing what will rather, stop people in some of these communities from misbehaving. Because according to the other narration, the people in these communities are fond of shooting and they have guns, and so the military is trying to put the fear of God in them by invading their homes and ensuring that their presence is felt. So it requires some thorough investigation.
Last word to you, Kofi Bento. Hearing from what you have heard, 10 people killed, military have issued a statement. That's it, end of story. Should the president be heard? Should the defense minister, interior minister? What should be happening in Boku as we speak?
Good morning, Samson.
Morning.
So all of us citizens should be very worried, and I say very worried because if people lose their lives in a state which has a government, has security agencies, and nothing serious seems to be done about it consistently, you would have a situation where people will give up and then they will seek to defend themselves. Boku, like Soini said, I agree, is very tricky. But why it is a serious problem is that we are getting to the point where I can imagine that there will be people living in Boku who do not feel Ghanaian. And they do not feel that the army is on their side. They do not feel that the government protects them. They do not feel that the security services are there for their sake. And God forbid, but if too many people in Boku get that mindset, I don't think the people in Boku are cowards or they are afraid of war per se. So for me, what has to happen is that we need to have the whole state security system take Boku seriously because they are citizens of Ghana, and then do everything to make sure these lives are not lost in vain. Because if we don't do that, we will send a signal that it doesn't matter when some people lose their lives. And when we send those signals, we are preparing ourselves for an explosion we can't contain.
Do you know what has happened to the 8 people who were killed in the elections?
Manifest in the south.
Do you know what has happened? What has happened in the matter of the 8 people who were killed in the elections?
I don't want to go too far. I would have gone all the way into what happened in Parliament. And I would have talked about how our military has become an unruly force. I would have mentioned the fact that in a number of situations, as Awase, East Legon, Parliament, things have happened and the state has failed, refused or neglected to put a handle on it. I just wanted to make it short by saying that if our state system, security system, does not seem like it is under proper control and can take lives, very soon you will have people banding together against them.
All right.
I want to know where that will end.
Okay.
So, Boku should be taken very seriously, and we should see the state taking a step to assure all of us that indeed we have a functioning state system. For now, it's doubtful.
And Ejura is more recent, fresh on our minds. I take a break here with a message from Frank. He says, Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, the President, swore an oath to protect citizens of Ghana. Under his watch, the military has killed Ghanaians with impunity. There has to be a full independent public inquiry into this and the killings during the 2020 elections. This cannot be allowed to continue. Politicians across the political divide from the north need to come together in the interest of their people to broker sustainable peace, even if it means involving international negotiators. So be it. Let's value human lives for Christ's sake. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Thank you very much. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Also joining us now is Linda Ofori-Kwafo, Executive Director, Ghana Integrity Initiative. That is the Ghana chapter of Transparency International. And she's also on the board of Transparency International. I think the only African woman on that board. I remember how that was celebrated in 2020, thereabout, or 2021. Thank you, Linda, for making time to join us. But let's quickly deal with the revised terms and deadline for the bond issues, as in the debt exchange program. Yes. So help us to appreciate. Something has happened that if you guys had not, protested and done the things you have done, will not have been available. So the minister that you have accused of not listening and the government that is not, just trying to impose things on citizens, has at least listened.
So, not listened enough, because you hear headline, if we go with the proposals made by the government, the memorandum, we are going to lose about 60 to 88% of the value of the bonds. And that's the research that's been shown. That's a research result that we have. Losing about 60 to 88% of the value of the bonds. So this is no offer at all. Rather, you hear lawyers, even on lawyers' platform, you see them raising this expropriation, Article 20. Illegal taking of citizens' money. So Sam, the simple thing is that when we
talking about lawyers' platform, there's a concern that the Ghana Bar Association should be heard and it's not being heard.
Excellent. Yes. Senior lawyers have raised it, and it's something that maybe the leadership of the Bar Association should do, because you see the Christian Council has been heard, the Catholic bishops, they, as usual, for them, even during the PNDC regime, they were the bulwark of our democracy, because they stood up against the PNDC regime and all that, right? So they've been heard. I mentioned Christian Council, then organized labor. You've seen IEA, you've heard IFS, Dr. John Kwachi, and so on and so forth. So
we've heard even Alan Tremanting.
Oh, excellent! Except that Alan, I have to be careful. Once
he believes in exemption for the individual bondholders.
Yes, because, as I say, let me be careful. From what I see right now, is the easiest thing to do, because overwhelming majority of our people support the exemption. So it's the easiest thing to do. For me, when Alan sat in government and the ship sank last year, I became very wary of his politics. The same for Baumia. Baumia was talking in opposition. When the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. Last year, the exchange rate.
So let's talk about the new terms. The new terms for individual bondholders. If you are age below 59 years, you get 10% on your coupon. Maximum maturity 5 years. If you are a retiree, 15% on your coupon and 5 years maximum maturity.
Excellent. Now, Sam, what we say, this is not good enough. So this is what our members are saying they don't like, because as we speak now, just Monday, 6th February, about 4 billion of the bonds will be maturing, right? 4 billion on Monday, 6th. Then you go to about 20th February, another 4.2 or something will be maturing. So the point I'm making is that lots of people are about to get paid anyway. So there's no incentive. There's no incentive for them to sign on. That's it. And then you go on for the rest of this year up to November. Then next year, 2024, 2025, 2026. So the finance minister, you know, last Friday, not yesterday's Friday, the Friday before, the last week, he gave us a firm promise that government will honor the existing bonds. And then sure enough, on Monday, Daily Graphic, both the online and the hard copies, the story came out that government will honor the existing bonds. So Sam, once the existing bonds are good, they are good. He's subsequently raised issues of tradability, and we don't want to get in there. Our technical committee has advised us that
let's listen to Deputy Minister John Kuma on this. John Kuma was on the Super Morning Show, and people think he almost repeated what he had said earlier that people felt was misspeak.
All the old bonds with new ones. And so you created a risk for those who were holding the old bonds. In the sense that if they have to, an individual bondholder has a liquidity challenge and he wants to trade off his bond, he needed a market to trade in. And because you have transitioned all the old bonds to the new ones, he's virtually going to get maybe 10% of the value of his bond. So for instance, let's say I have a bond of 1 million Ghana cedis as an individual bondholder. If we finally transition to the new bonds, there will be no market, especially in the secondary market for me, in case I have a liquidity challenge. I cannot trade that 1 million cedis that I have for immediate liquidity. And that may cost me to receive maybe just 100,000 out of the 1 million. And so we realized that by default of the new arrangement, you are disadvantaging the individual bondholders. So let's give them an option. Now the option is that individual bondholders can still choose to exempt or choose to stay out. But in their own interest of future liquidity challenge, we are encouraging them to also take a new bond that we are issuing specifically for the individual bondholders, which we said 59 years and below, you're going to get 10% coupons. It's no longer zero, as we announced earlier. It's gone to 10% per annum, and then the maturity from 15 years is reduced to 5 years. So clearly, this offers a huge opportunity for individual bondholders to now come on board. And those above 59 years too, they will even have coupon rate of 15% and maturity reduced to 5 years. The advantage, even though it's voluntary, the advantage for taking these new bonds is that in case of future liquidity challenge, you are still able to trade your new bonds and get the value of your bond. Rather than, so let me advise those who want to just hold to the old bond, if that is what they prefer, is that you have to hold on till end of maturity. So if your bond will end in 2027, please, no matter your situation, don't try to sell it.
Why shouldn't you try to sell it?
Because there will be no market.
Right. So that is the risk.
That's false. So that's how come Senyo came in very strongly. You know, on that day it was good. That Senyo came in strongly, and later John Kuma was complaining that.
Okay, hold on. Let's listen to Senyo, and then we'll come back to the table. Okay. Let's listen to Senyo Hosi, who is also a convener of the Individual Bondholders Forum.
It is not true that you are losing 90% of your value.
I said,
is he right that if government doesn't get other people participating in the program, like the banks and all the others, it will have very difficult challenges? Absolutely true. We have told everybody that individuals are not required in this mix because what government needs, according to its own estimation, is 80%. Individuals are just about 10%. So you still have a 90% pool to work from. The truth is that government does not even need 80%. Because if government takes responsibility and starts leading the way, taking the right sacrifices, the right sense of responsibility, by adjusting its expenditure, adjusting its fiscal space, its revenue operations, and start being responsible on that front. When you talk about contribution and people are sacrificing for others to have a right, John Kuma is sitting there, ask him, who is having the biggest right right now? Tell us what government has announced as these major structures to change its way of life. You haven't announced one thing.
Yeah, so Martin, the Ghana Association of Banks, you know, they signed on, so to speak, on January 23rd. You had the Ghana Insurance Association, they signed on 26 January. The Ghana Security Industry, they did January 27. And now we are waiting on you, and you are sticking to a promise of total exemption. Pension funds were thought to have been exempted, but it looks like that is not exactly the case. Yes, so they are also sounding the alarm bells.
Excellent, excellent. So Sam, yes, we are holding on to our existing bonds because that's a firm assurance from the minister that the existing bonds will be honored. So once they'll be honored, there's no incentive to trade them in where we will lose value. And as we say, once you hold your bond, you will get paid. Now, let's quickly mention this. The banks that have signed on grudgingly, we are shareholders in the banks. So yes, we are shareholders. Millions of Ghanaians have bought shares in the bank. So we are receiving haircut there because very soon the banks will come and tell us that they can't give us any proper dividends. So we are already suffering there. Then we are suffering the cost of living crisis. But
the banks are assured of the liquidity support.
We don't have
from the fund that is being set up.
Yes, we don't have clarity on its structures and all that. You know, the banks had to gradually sign on because of fear that, you know, they may be victimized and all that. They are not happy. You ask Professor Bobkin and the rest, people who are close to them, they will tell you. But it's just because of the, you know, coercive powers of the state and everything. But they are not happy because, Sam, the easiest is, look at the budget. Look at the budget. Let's cut down. Cut. Everybody agrees. If IEA, IFS, all the other people, Raymond Akwa, Winston, Mama V, everybody, every Ghanaian has come to appreciate that the way to go is to cut. So why is Oforiatta sticking to his guns that for him, we should rather lose our investment? It doesn't add up. It just doesn't work that way.
It's, Honorable Swin, what do you also say about this? So there was a first deadline, December 19, 2022. We came to the second deadline, December 30, 2022. Third deadline, January 16, 2023. Fourth deadline, January 31st. Then here we are, fifth deadline, February 7.
Well, Samson, all of this is happening as a result of the cluelessness and the intransigence of that cluelessness that is exhibited by the people who are in charge.
The longer it takes, the worse the economy gets.
But unfortunately, the people in charge don't realize this fact, that the longer it takes, because it has taken so long for them to do certain things, we got to where we are today. And unfortunately, they are not still waking up to smell the coffee, to realize that the longer it takes, the worse our situation becomes, so that they can begin to act in ways that will engender, some sort of sympathy and support from the general public. And it is sad. I mean, for some of us who knew.
But there are no options.
There are.
From Bright Simmons' presentation to us on this show, the countries that have done this, the least period they took to consult with the people was 13 months. Some did 18, some did far more. But in our case, because we did not subscribe to the debt suspension and the situation got bad, we have to go to the IMF, they say board.
From staff level, we're going to the board.
In April, right? And we need to get this as quickly as possible. So we don't have the luxury.
So why didn't we subscribe to the debt suspension?
Because we are taking a firm decision that we're not going to
We're
IMF.
arrogant, we're intransigent, we refuse to listen to good advice. In fact, when we're told that our economy was in crisis by 2018, 2019, or was heading there, it was denied, it was poo-pooed.
Yes.
And by 2020, the COVID hit and exposed the fact that our government had been managing the economy cluelessly and that they had finished, wasting the inheritance that they came to meet, the harvest. It was harvest time. I mean, some work had been done prior to their coming into office. And so it was a period of plenty. 2017 was a period of plenty. 2018 was a period of plenty. But by 2019, the signs were on the wall that as a result of mismanagement and misapplication and corruption of the period of plenty, we were heading into a ditch. They denied it. And eventually...
2019, I think it was rather 2020, 21 that the World Bank representative said that things were already getting bad. Not in 2019.
According to the World Bank report, by 2019, we were highly, our debt stress was high. By 2019, our debt stress was high, according to the World Bank report. In fact, the World Bank country director himself has said it, that we started facing challenges by 2019. We had finished wasting the harvest that we came to meet, and so the signs started showing. And clearly, they did not take remedial steps. They were still boastful. They were still arrogant about the mismanagement that they were supervising. And
so now here we are in the ditch. So how do we pull ourselves out?
That's where we are in the ditch, but unfortunately, they are still not listening. So I was surprised when you started by saying that, well, they have listened. Look, by 2021, there were calls for them to have a national forum. Let's even have a national debt forum. So that you have all these people who will be affected by this restructuring come to one room, sit around one table. Let us all appreciate how the agreement with the financial institutions, for example, will affect the individuals who trade with the financial institution. You are not doing that. You are rather engaged in divide and conquer. So you go and negotiate separately with the banks. Whatever the banks agree to is not in some way in the interest of the individual who also does business with the bank. We do not know if our interest has been guaranteed in the agreement that the banks have reached with the government as far as this is concerned. Again, with the insurers, we do not know. I have a package with the insurance company. The insurance company has gone to agree with government to take a haircut. I do not know how it will impact my deal with them. So when you do not have that national platform where you have all the stakeholders sitting together to have a conversation where it is frank, where you all know what you have to give and take, and especially where the government leads the way in shaving its hair. And that is where I agree with Martin. I mean, if you look at our budget for 2023, the government is seeking to increase expenditure by about 53%. Within the short period of time that minority members of parliament had to look at the budget, we were able to cut down on, for example, 80 million Ghana cedis that was going to, what do you call it, cathedral. 10 million Ghana cedis that was going to the corrupt-ridden special initiatives office at the presidency. We're able to do all of that within the short period of time that we had. So if together we sit around the table and look at this budget, where government is seeking to increase expenditure by 53%, and you are talking about increasing it from 133 billion to about 205 billion. 133 billion last year. I mean, we could not even, spend 133 billion. We couldn't even realize that. Now you are seeking to spend 205 billion. When you are asking me to reduce my spending and to give it to you to pay your debt, I mean, what sense does it make?
Kofi, people have asked the question, yes, deadline has been pushed to 7th. February, but the statement now categorical from the finance ministry is that individual bondholders are free not to participate. However, old bonds may have limited tradability. So if you are free not to participate, why go about worrying and asking to be exempted specifically?
Well, Newsfile time is so short, so let me make the points first. I will explain if I can later on. Samson, some of those words, some of those statements don't make sense. They make no sense whatsoever. And I think it is worrying because the first thing you want from managers of an economy is credibility. And the point has to be made that the managers of this process have zero credibility. They have changed the date 5 times. It's the same thinking that brought us into this problem. And Samson, at least you know at Imani, we have done the work. We have looked across the world, looked at the best practice, studied places where these things happen, how they went through it. All the main people speaking on this thing are fellows of Imani, and we have been working at this. I can tell you a few of the ingredients that lead to a solution in these kinds of problems. 1, these problems happen over time. They don't happen suddenly. And when they happen, a solution requires time. So in all the cases where these things have been solved, you had a situation where you have a credible team, number 1, and then they give themselves time, and what they use the time to do is to consult with the key persons involved, and then they're the people who are managing, make sure that they come to the table with clear austerity. They themselves start with the sacrificing. They make it clear before they ask other people to do the sacrifice. And that is how they buy goodwill. Now, with that consultation, sincere, respectful consultation over time, and that austerity, you fashion a plan, and then you execute the plan over time. We have a situation where these people have been arrogant, caused us the problem. They remain arrogant. They are not consulting. They are not giving it time. A problem that took them so many years to create, they pretend that, they can just snap their fingers and put out a plan, and then immediately the problem will be solved. They've put out 5 different deadlines, and we still don't have anywhere to go. This present situation where you have the statement that the banks are going to sign up, etc., there is no guarantee that even if all of them sign up, we'll reach the 80%. And if you solve that problem alone, it is like solving one puzzle out of 100. So honestly, it worries me that we've all left it to these same people who caused the problem to continue to, mess up the way they've messed up so far. And Senor Hosi is right. The existing bonds are the bonds with the strongest legal back. They are valid. They are the bonds with the best chances of tradability. All these new bonds are based on nothing. They haven't told us the basis upon which they are issuing these bonds and the sources of funding upon which they will pay what they have promised coming, when these things mature. So look, there's a lot to say about this, but the bottom line is this. Our managers, the people who are running this thing, should find a new set of faces who have better credibility and who are trusted to lead this process, because they are walking all of us into a ditch.
Walking all of us into a ditch. The president disagrees with you that the man at the helm is the best to continue to finish this, at least before, if anything will happen to him, will happen. He will not listen to even his own party people who say, change the driver. Now, thank you very much once again, Linda Ofori-Kwafo of the GII. The 2022 Corruption Perception Index, you title it, Ghana Fails to Make Progress. And you say that Ghana, for the third consecutive year, scores 43 out of a possible clean score of 100 and ranks 72 out of 180 countries and territories included in the 2022 Corruption Perception Index, released today, that's 31st of January 2023, by the Transparency International. This score, and you put that in bold highlights, reflects a lack of progress in the country's fight against corruption. A lack of progress. How do you stagnate in fighting corruption? It's difficult for me to appreciate.
Okay, thank you very much, Samson. And it is possible. And so then if the CPI is scoring countries on a clean score of 0 to 100, and for 3 years running, Ghana keeps on getting only 43, and out of 100, and it's happened in 2020, 21, and 2022. Then obviously, what other description can we give this kind of performance? So in CPI, we are expecting to go up. We have been 47 before, so we're expecting that gradually, by all the things that we put in place, we should be able to making some progress. But from what we had and the sources available that were used for Ghana, you could see that there were instances where Ghana made some progress in certain areas, and then those were cancelled. The progress was cancelled by another poor performance in other areas. Okay. And I always say that when it comes to the CPI, they are not speaking to angels. They are speaking to people who do business, experts, think tanks in the country. So they are actually trying to see how the country's public sector is actually allowing corruption to go on unconcerned, or what measures have been put in place to ensure that corruption is being minimized. Samson, the questions they ask in all these data sources, so the CPI is a composite index, it has about 13 data sources, and some of the questions they are asking borders on bribery, diversion of public funds, use of public office for private gain, nepotism in the civil service. And they go on further to ask questions like, what is government ability to enforce integrity mechanisms, effective prosecution of corrupt cases, and all those things. So then we might score on, for instance, the fact that we now have an OSP who is showing commitment and readiness and ability to deal with certain kinds of issues. But when it comes to, are we still having so much corruption happening? Then your auditor...
You are talking about the OSP that has been working for 17 months without pay?
Yes, the same OSP that's
okay.
I know what you are trying to understand. Okay, so talk about the OSP making some efforts and actually getting some results with the minimal resources at their disposal. And talk about, so if you look at the Auditor General's report, for instance, and the recent one, the COVID-19, government expenditure on COVID-19, also showing how much we still have corruption as a problem. We said COVID was a problem. COVID was the reason why we are where we are. But when we had resources to manage COVID, we even ended up also mismanaging that particular funding. So if they ask the business expert about use of public resources, they will answer, no, we are not doing well. When they ask about is the OSP being effective with the little resources, yes, the OSP is doing well, but then it will come and cancel each other, and we'll then still be staying where we are. That's how come we type Ghana make progress.
The people that they speak to in this report, do they include the big businesses that are trying to evade tax, trying to cheat the government, and because of that the GRA has been on them? Do they include the guys at the computer placement center who are taking 20,000 cedis for parents who are desperate and needing their children to be placed in grade A schools? Those parents are equally corrupt and they too are corrupt. Do they include these people?
So then we talk about I said the CPI is a composite index. So the various surveys that have been used, the 13 surveys, might have spoken to some of these people. But as I said, if even there's a business expert who doesn't have a child going to SHS here in Ghana, so might not know, they read, they hear, they experience when they do business with the Ghana Revenue Authority, when they go to all these tax institutions, they encounter corruption. So that they speak about what they actually, their experience in the country. So it is possible some of them might not have heard about the fraud in the school placements and all that, but some of them might have read about it, but I think they'll be talking more about their personal experiences in doing business with the country's public sector. And where they actually encounter corruption, they will talk about it. So
how bad is our current standing that we have held on, for 3 years?
It is, for me, it is very bad. And especially when we are at the moments where we are talking about lack of resources. So I was just listening to the DDEP conversation that you had before this. And the fact that we need to even manage the little resources that we have. And in account, we say something like, so you need to resource the SP, which the SP's own institutional framework has been designed to be able to even help us make money, if I can put it that bluntly. So help us to save money, help us to, so that when you look at I think the section 66 or so of the OSP Act, that actually says that when they recover stolen wealth, they are supposed to give a percentage to the consolidated fund. The SP's office takes about 30% or so. Attorney General's office takes about 10%. The 10% will go into whistleblowing persons or institutions that help in the recovery. So then if you have such an institution, you need to resources to be able to really protect the IMF money that we are going for. Because even the COVID funds, if you have not resourced the SP's office and you have actually put in place measures to prevent the corruption from happening, Samson, by now we should have so much that we can actually work with. But then, so for me, I think that if we are not able to put some measures in place, the situation will get...
So we got to a poor ranking. And since then, we have done practically nothing to improve the fight against corruption by a government that won power on the back of a campaign against corruption. The CDD's Afrobarometer 2019 found that corruption was being normalized in Ghana, It established that a majority of citizens found corruption to be somewhat or a lot worse. You had 6 in 10 people, that's 61% of Ghanaians, who were afraid to report corruption for fear of suffering reprisals or some retaliation of the sort. So this is where we are still. Corruption has been normalized, 3 years.
Yeah, so corruption has been normalized, Samson. But as I said, so the effort that is being put in by institutions like the SP is not reflecting on the CPI because corruption is still allowed to continue. And it's so normalized, so you brought in this thing about the school placement system. And I'm happy with the work that the Fourth Estate did, because this is something that we all know about. This is something that at the time that they were moving from the old system, where we all belong to, where our parents go to the schools and beg them to give us Achimota or whatever. I went to secondary college. I didn't get anybody to pay for me to go to Achimota. But that doesn't mean I was not good. My school is great, and that's made me great. So I like secondary college. Whatever it is. So we're hoping that that system was transforming to a more appropriate and more manageable, that will be able to eradicate the kind of corruption that we saw in those days, where the head teachers meet around the table and they keep on pushing the papers around and take money and do their own things. So a more dangerous state, where even it's only the rich that can actually have access to certain schools. And the painful bit about this school placement thing is when you qualify, when your child has done so well, and the name will have to be removed for somebody, a rich parent somewhere, whose child has performed poorly to get the place because their parents can pay. What system are we talking about?
So whilst we are talking about the grand corruption, what you're talking about now is the petty, everyday corruption that is people are also normalizing, isn't it? If the parent is ready to go pay, and there is someone with the Ministry of Education or Education Service who are ready to sell the grade.
It is. You see, at TI and at GI, we keep on saying that corruption's negative impacts or negative effects is quite dire, but then it affects the poor more than even the rich. So what is happening is that somebody somewhere in the village somewhere whose child has performed well, and all that person has is the child's intellect. The person has been given, by God's grace, as a child who's very good academically, but cannot get the schools they want because a rich parent somewhere. And for me, the normalization of corruption, the same Afrobarometer that you made reference to, actually said that by that, people are losing trust in our institutions and in our government. And if you look at the CPI's theme for this year, we're talking about corruption, conflict, and security. And gradually, as people actually lose trust for the state, you know where we are heading towards. So those things are intertwined. And if you don't take steps to address the problem of corruption, I'm not going to be a prophetess of doom, but very soon, the things about conflict and security will be something that we cannot manage in this country. And for me, people are losing trust in the government that actually came on the back of anti-corruption. For us, the mismanagement, so what we are discussing, I actually was reading Article 36, I think the Directive Principle of State Policies 1, and what role government responsibility the Constitution gave to the state to manage our resources to the extent that the people will be happy and all that. Today, the people are, because of, it is pure mismanagement, it is pure corruption, and it is misappropriation. So some people want to give it nice names in Auditor General's report. The thing is corruption, and mismanagement has gotten us here. So let us resource the institutions with the power of preventing the corruption from happening, with the power of recovering stolen wealth, and with the power to investigate and sanction corruption to do more. And any day, anytime, I would advocate for the OSC.
Okay. Please hold on there. Kofi Bento, Occupy Ghana has been doing some work. It's been doing what it is known to do best, the brain power heavy lifting work. And Occupy Ghana tells us that the Auditor General's report, if you take the Auditor General's report, 2016 to 2020 alone, it reveals the money stolen and misused is about 48 billion Ghana cedis. If you add those of 2021 and 2022, maybe if we add the special audit on the COVID-19, and the money that must be recovered from those misused or stolen, then we should be talking about an amount 4 times the 3 billion that we are begging from the IMF to revive the economy.
Yes, Samson.
What's wrong with us?
Oh, there's a lot that is wrong with us. And to put what you said in a simple statement, we steal and waste in this country more than twice what we borrow. We steal and waste in this country more than twice what we borrow. There are fewer than 500,000 people leading this country out of 30 million. And those 500,000, and that is the ministries and whatever, they steal and waste more than twice what the 30 million of us borrow to just survive. Okay? And these are the things that sometimes when you consider, if you look at some of the things like you say, Occupy Ghana, Imani, and the work we do, and some of the things that you see, okay, and we've changed governments. It's not like it's the same set of people. We've changed governments. You know, we drive this set out, another set comes, they do the same thing. So we need to figure out
this government, while campaigning, promised us that it was going to, get us so much money from corruption. So it was going to block the corruption, places of corruption, and get us a lot of money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it is possible. And if you sit outside and you look, you can see where these blockages can happen and how we can save these monies. The problem is that when they get in, they don't do it. Many reasons account for that, but this point is very important. Let me make the point. The problem comes from our governance systems and structures, which ultimately goes to the Constitution. And these governance systems and structures, because they are flawed, manifest themselves in massive corruption, which makes people give up. And then it also manifests in economic problems like what we are having now, leading to DD and all those kinds of things. So look, you can bring people, make President Obama the president of Ghana, he will have problems. So two things, yes, our leaders are failing us serially, but the main thing that needs to be done is to now put structures around them, starting from the amendment of the Constitution, so that these things that continue to recur, regardless of which government is in place, will at least put a handle on it and maybe redirect it in the right way. But the problem we have now is that our leaders do not live what they promise. They don't care about making sure that we move from what they have complained about to the right place. And you know, when these things happen and continue, that is how you get the coups and all those things, because it seems to some people that constitutions don't work. Constitutions work. What we must do is make sure that our leaders at least develop a certain passion to make sure they will make. My hesitation is because it is not like the Constitution caused the problem. With this same Constitution, you can actually get a lot done. So it comes back to the problem of leadership. Now, if we leave the Constitution as it is, which is more or less like open, then if you get a bad leader, we'll continue to have corruption. So what we need to do is now move from an open Constitution to a tight Constitution that does not give them any room at all. Because really, I'm not sure whether it's NDC or MPP or there's going to be a third party using this same Constitution and seeing all the things that can happen, but still turning around and doing the right things. We've been there, done that. It's been 30 years. We cannot trust our leaders to do the right thing. It's unfortunate, but that's the truth.
Martin, you have often focused on what you say is a one bullets kind of solution for checking corruption in public place.
Yes.
But from what you have observed over the period, the CPI says we have been stagnating. Yeah. I'm asking a question, and I think I know the answer from you because of what you have been doing over the last few months.
Yeah, we should.
Okay, so what do you say?
Yeah, so it's a sad spectacle, like you said, and I like the way you played back the president's speech to the BBC. When they asked him, Mr. Akufo-Addo, how are you going to fund free SHS? He says, with proceeds from corruption. You see, you've played that tape over and over. Yeah, it resonated with us because we could all feel corruption under Suini's party those days. So we thought Akufo-Addo was coming to do it. It turns out that he was even going to get more corrupt because as we speak today, openly,
he was actually going to use the Annas principle.
Yes, we're coming to his 18 notable codes. Maybe I'll repeat them here. But now his family is very rich through the data bank commissions from the bonds, the Euro bonds and everything. Yes, his family has become very, very rich. So you see how the president is not the right person to fight corruption. And you see why citizens keep saying that he just has to resign. Because once his family has become very rich as a result of his coming into office, he lost the fight. The plot was lost from day one, as soon as he put in measures that his family can become rich.
You're talking about a president that a petition that you filed and complained that he had not acted on for a long time.
Thank you.
Someone filed and you complained he had not acted for a long time. So you decided to file it to OSP.
Excellent.
On the back of the OSP's investigations, this president you are accusing dismissed 2 officers.
Yes. Too little, too late. Are you done? Too little, too late. Sam, you are a lawyer. We are all lawyers. Look, this is a petition that from day one, he failed to even acknowledge Dr. Suleiman Anamzoya. He failed to acknowledge even the letter from Dr. Suleiman Alassane Anamzoya. He failed to do so. And it's so worrying. The chief of staff, the same. Baumia, the same. They were all copied. So it's as if they were in cahoots to just, deal with this matter. We just step on it. This is a foolish case.
Anamzoya, by the way, was the president's appointee too.
Excellent. You see? So like,
he had to leave the place.
Yes, they said this is a foolish case. They will not even acknowledge. Look, I understand Anamzoya even tried to see the vice president. The handlers will not let him. So that means that the people living, this is shepherding the vice president, they are a problem because Anamzoya is alive. You can interview him. The vice president's handlers will not allow him.
I've spoken to him.
Excellent. You see that thing? So it just tells that it's a nation with corruption rate large. And you see this. Look, Sam, I said it earlier on.
When Manasseh did his contract for sale, and Anyenini Boateng was indicted.
Thank you.
The president removed him immediately.
Yes, yes. So that is why I'm baffled that this one, he's not removing him. And this one, the evidence is even clearer. This one, you see that Anamzoya warned them. As soon as he saw that there was this forged contract, he wrote to the chief executive. If you read the OSP report, you see them say, look, he wrote to the chief executive, hey, this thing is forged. I didn't sign a contract for 10.4 million. No, the one I signed is 5.7 million. The chief executive, Sumaila Abdurrahman, would have none of it. And today he's still in office. During President
But he's being prosecuted.
Yeah, no, but he can't stay in that office. Sam, what will happen to the employees who are going to testify in the court? They'll feel threatened because he still comes into the office, he's still in office. And the potential witnesses are in the same office. How? That's a hostile environment.
So he's fighting corruption, but not as much as you expect.
Yeah, he's not fighting. This case is not fighting. There was nothing he could do.
Within his period, we have been told about the facts that you cannot contradict, that the anti-corruption agencies have received more money within his period than any other regime.
Sam, right now as we speak, I don't agree. Yes, so it may just be figures, but as to impact, no. And may be misdirected. Let's do this. You know, as we speak now, lawyers have come together. They are petitioning the president over the non-proper funding of the OSP. Because the OSP last report, he said, so Kisie Jabin said he has not received the establishment budget. So you see a huge edifice there, but it's empty. He doesn't have logistics, etc. So lawyers have come together. They are signing a petition being led by Judge Joseph Tete to petition the president. Very soon we'll bring it for you to also sign. That he should set up, he should provide money for the OSP, because as we speak now, I don't know why Linda didn't mention it. The OSP has only 3 investigators. 1, 2, 3. There are some police stations that have more than 3 investigators. The OSP doesn't have enough prosecutors. So you see that it's even the deputy OSP, senior, the lady, she's the one traveling to Tamale to prosecute the case. That tells you that the OSP is grossly underfunded. President Kufuor is not interested because the more he funds the OSP, the more they will come after his appointees. Because as we sit now, you know Clara Napagatia, the office of the president, she approved this transaction. She signed. Director of budget also signed. And they are lucky. And that tells you that we have to look at the OSP law. Because OSP doesn't do causing financial loss, because it appears that would be the proper offense. So maybe we have to look at how the Attorney General may give that, look, in that case, when you find financial loss, please go ahead. I think that will help us. So Clara can't be Napagatia. She can't be celebrating that she's been left, I mean, they didn't indict her. No, she approved. So Sam, what I want us and Ghanaians to analyze is it. So the madam, the boss who approved the payment of the money, how can she go scot-free? How does she pick her pen to sign the approval documents without doing the necessary checks? She must pay a price for that. You can't just sign. So you just walk into the office, anything that's put on your table, you start signing. So on those bases, the president has to sack her.
I will have to come back to you later for the question of the solutions.
So Sam, can we kick in just one question? Okay, the two, our favorite articles.
Yes, I'll come to you, then we will get there. But Sweeney, for example, last week, when we had to discuss the Auditor General Special Report on COVID-19, I brought in, a president from somewhere else who said, because you have spent COVID-19 money on travel, get out of my cabinet, and ensure that, many people got arrested, and prosecuted over this matter. Well, this week we also heard that he's also reduced his ministerial portfolio or ministers because of the, situations. And I was reminded that if the auditor does a report You don't expect the president to come and grandstand and say, auditor has found you, so you are in trouble. Kwekwa Ajimamenu, you have been found to have done this, so get out. You should allow the processes to work, including Public Accounts Committee. It's not doing those things publicly by the president an indication that he is not fighting corruption. The systems are there.
Well, Samson, I agree with Kofi that Newsfile time is very short. I would have loved to have this conversation under 3 themes.
Get to the jugular.
I mean, the general perspective of corruption in this country. Then you look at the political perspective. Political party funding, for example, becomes crucial in such a discussion. Then you can now look at the specifics. That is, in terms of parties, regimes, and conduct of people who lead those parties, and how that impact on this fight. But I'll just say that, because of lack of time, that this government, for some of us who believe that it was going to fail, we are even shocked at the outstanding failure. I mean, even for those of us who didn't expect anything from this government, it is proven to be the worst ever in the First Republic. Look, our education sector is messed up, and you cannot rule out corruption in that mess up. You look at unemployment rate, it has ballooned to double digits. You know, now you have youth unemployment over 30%. You look at, cost of living. Never before have we had to pay so much for very basic things. Infrastructure deficit has increased. And corruption. They have been stuck at the worst performance of the previous governments. In fact, the previous government's worst performance is where they have been stuck at. 43, out of 100. And it is not just based on what we perceive. It is what we know the reality is. And in fact, if we were even going to do this measurement, this ranking, based on the reality, we will be worse. So perhaps they are even lucky that this is based on perception. Look, at the time that Ghana was ranked 43, which was considered the worst in 2016, you had a minister of state resigning because there was a bus branding under her watch. Here we are, you have, as Martin is telling us, the appointee at the presidency, and she's not the first one, and it doesn't look like she'll be the last appointee of the presidency. That will be insulated from clear commissions that have aided or have led to corrupt activity. And people think it is grandstanding that we expect from the president. Yes, if the president doesn't have to grandstand to tell us that audit findings against Kwekwa Ajimamenu is so bad that he must step aside, then he should not also be the one telling us that Ajimamenu is such a hard worker and people just hate him. When he does that, he sets the tone for all other institutions that are expected to work under him. That's why our people say that the fish starts rotting from the head.
That's it.
The gold mining company owned by his regional chairman. What's the name? Akonta Mine.
Chairman Wuntumi.
Why should it lie in his mouth to come and tell us when there is evidence and report that that company is engaged in mining in a forest reserve, that it is not mining in a forest reserve?
That indictment was actually by the government.
By the same government institutions of state that he says we should allow to work. And we should look to those areas to see the evidence of his fight. Yet he comes out, he will not grandstand to sack the people and to dismiss people, but he will grandstand in defense of those people. I mean, that is why I'm saying that for those of us who even believe that this government was up to no good and President Akufo-Addo and his vice president were not the right people to be given the mandate to rule, we are astonished by their outstanding failure.
Let's listen to the Attorney General, Godfred Dame, on this matter of corruption. and then we'll hear from Bafwa Ajumandua as well. Let's hear them.
2017, the government has focused on building a system for preventing and detection of corruption. It has undertaken arguably the boldest initiatives since independence to reform and strengthen Ghana's capacity to tackle corruption, especially in the public sector. I find it highly unreasonable and unfair for so-called high-profile criminal cases involving simple summary offenses of fraud, willfully causing financial loss to the state, and money laundering to drag on for years in our courts, while similar cases filed against the perceived ordinary member of society are quickly or rapidly concluded, most of the time within about 6 months to 1 year. We have witnessed the failure of the High Court to resolve the Opudi trial the past 6 years. This is simply unacceptable. It's not acceptable for such a case to stay at the court for 6 years, when other more complex cases of murder, secession, and offenses bordering the security of the state are more speedily resolved. These developments deepen the injustice and inequity in our society. The judiciary clearly has to play its part. They have to play their part. The judges also, yes, in the eradication of corruption. There cannot be a better way of ensuring that corruption does not pay than through the speedy, efficient, and just eradication of corruption cases, especially the so-called high-profile cases involving politicians and other wealthy businessmen.
School placement and the fact that people are paying 20,000 to get their kids into schools and all. So corruption is not just the technocrats or the bureaucrats or the so-called political leaders. It is endemic in the society that we have created. And that creation comes from the system that we have created and how we have created systems that make it possible for people to take advantage, you see. So it's a tough issue, and at times I'm uncomfortable to Parliament. At times some laws are passed, bills are passed after parliamentarians have been paid, and I'm saying this publicly. They can challenge me on that. They take it, and then you stand and say, you are corrupt, you are corrupt. They are politicians, look. There's so much dishonesty in this country.
Right. So we will take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk solutions. We have talked these solutions in the last 3 years, and we have remained where we are. Can we hear something different? Or it's just the same things that ought to be done that are not being done? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And we have been engaging Kofi Bento, Martin Pebu, Alhassan S. Suhini, and Linda Ofori Kwafo. Shortly, we will be joined by Kwesi Kwarteng, spokesperson for the Ministry of Education, as we look at how to fix the cracks in the school placement system. So let's talk some solutions here. And in the course of this week, there are some people who have been very excited about this development, where often Ghana has a case against in the international arbitration circles, and we go and hire lawyers, millions, thousands of dollars, And Professor Kwaku Azar has been saying, what's the job of the Attorney General? What do they do there that they don't go and do this defense by themselves? And you have a lineup of lawyers from the Attorney General's office, no foreign, inclusions. The Attorney General leads to get succeed in a preliminary objection about the jurisdiction that the Chinese company that was seeking $55 million for Ghana cancelling its contract with us on the traffic. So that's refreshing. But they've been successful there, but the case has not been determined on its merit, so we don't know where else it will go. I want to start with you, Martin, before I go to Linda and then come back to the studio again. How do we ensure that at the next CPI, we are not still where we are marking time?
Good, good. So we need a lot of reforms, a lot, right? And let's also mention this, that the CPI report says at page 4, it says that corruption and impunity can spill over into violence by fueling social grievances. Corruption and impunity can spill over into violence by fueling social grievances. You remember when the president was in opposition, he mentioned that there could be an Arab Spring here. Yes, and it's still the same. It's even worse now. So there could still be an Arab Spring in Ghana, based on his own assessment. Because once people are getting disillusioned, they see that you have come into office, you are bathing in the sky, your family has become rich, your ministers are in guzzling V8s and all those things. People will get aggrieved because they have classmates who are still walking on the roads without even bicycles. So the president should take this move.
Bathing in the sky, is it a figure of speech? Because the defense minister denied that he wasn't bathing in the sky.
He said the president can't even take a shower in there. And the thing is a luxurious one, the jet, right? That private jet, it's a luxurious one with all those facilities.
Okay, we're talking solutions.
Yeah, so page 4 of the report is reminding the president that the Arab Spring that he said could happen in Ghana, the factors are still rife for an Arab Spring in Ghana.
West now.
Yes, West, actually. Thank you, Suini. The president must remember his Arab Spring warning is still relevant today because it's West. Because like we've shown, corruption in 2014, we had, is it 48%? Yes, 48. And the West in 2016 was 43. And he is coming, his best is 43. So it tells you that he's not the man to fight corruption. And that's why we always come back to the thing that one of the solutions to this corruption problem is that the president has to go. He and Baumia and all this economic management team, they should go.
Oh.
Yes.
I thought you were going to talk about your article.
Yes, that's a solution. One of is the easier solution because the man who is to fight corruption has been defeated by corruption. So he should go immediately because the article we are coming to, that's Article 286 Clause 4. He won't do anything about it. He's not interested. Not when now he's become very rich. He and his family are enjoying. So 286 Clause 4 says that any property or assets acquired by a public officer after the initial declaration required by Clause 1 of this article, and which is not reasonably attributable to income, gift, loan, inheritance, or any other reasonable source, shall be deemed to have been acquired in contravention of this Constitution. 286 Clause 4. That's the unexplained wealth provision.
Right.
Sam, and it's your baby. You even started talking about it before I jumped on, so maybe I've just come to help you in this fight. So we are saying that let's operationalize this clause. And the reason I came to join you on this fight is when I read our history and saw that the Jage Commission, what they did was that they hold most of Kwame Nkrumah's appointees, all of them. You see, I have the documents there in the office. Each one by one, come and declare everything that you got in office and explain how you got it. And then our people, Ghanaians, would often go and leave evidence in the night at the doorstep of the Jage Commission offices. So that's how come I joined. It's your fight. You started this. And I'm saying that, so let's operationalize this article by amending the Constitution. We don't even need to amend the Constitution. Just pass an act of parliament, automatic. Every minister, and then apart from the minister, a certain grade of senior chief directors and directors. When you leave office, automatically you go before Shraj to go and account for your wealth.
You actually don't need a new act. You can amend the Shraj Act or even the OSP Act.
Thank you.
Fix it there.
Very good. So
once you have acquired some wealth,
that's it.
We need you to explain how you got it.
Sam.
If your salary cannot afford it, we take it back.
Thank you.
If you can't afford that if you can't explain that it was a loan,
thank you.
If you can't explain that it was a gift,
thank you.
If you can't explain that it was an inheritance,
thank you.
We take it.
Unexplained wealth.
You got it through a wrong process.
Just like I heard.
We don't have to catch you stealing money.
Thank you very much. And that's it. And the Jage Commission shows that is our history. And even apart from that, there's this popular this public prosecutor, Lawyer Pierre. That's how he was caught. This Coles Motors and Jabba, the Jabba case. He was prosecuting them. Then he was seen to have received money in his accounts in London. People came and put the evidence in front of the door of the Equity Commission and all that. That's how Lawyer Pierre was prosecuted. He prosecuting corruption, got prosecuted for corruption. So Sam, I've joined your fight. let's do an amendment. We don't need a constitutional review, though we all know that right now the constitution needs to be reviewed, but that's after the election, blah, blah, blah. Immediately.
This goes to public officers. How about those who are not public officers, our family and friends, who we can see the evidence of their change in status and wealth? They are not in government. How will you hold them?
Thank you. Let's rope them in. Let's rope them in. After all, the Baba Kamara case, Baba Kamara case, the Supreme Court said, yes, private persons are involved, can also be investigated by Shraj. Private persons Maybe and Johnson case. Yeah, the Supreme Court said even private persons. So in this new act, so Mr. President, whilst you're on your way out, we're asking you to resign. But in the meantime, please, let's quickly pass an act of parliament that will make it automatic. Every appointee, chief director, minister, deputy minister, presidency, all the presidential staff, you are leaving office, you appear before Shraj.
Let's hear.
And then, two more. Apart from that, also, now we are acting. He should act with dispatch. Quick. When you see a simple case, don't say due process. Then for almost 7 months, it's even 1 year. You remember Suleiman Alassane, Dr. Anamdoya, he petitioned in January last year. 1 year on, people are still in office. No, we can't do this kukwasa. Sam, give me 30 seconds. Let me mention some of the notable things Akufo-Addo said, which today he has not lived up to, and he thinks we've forgotten. He needs a quick reminder that this thing has to stop. 1, I shall protect the public purse. I see he's been defeated. 2, I'm too old to steal your money. I have my money already. Well, now he's become very rich as a result of coming to office. 3, yetisikasu nso ekomdien. 4, try me and see. 5, I'm not corrupt and will never be corrupt. Now lie. 6, I can develop Ghana without borrowing money from anywhere. The money is here. 7, I will transform Ghana in 18 months. 8, I will not operate a family and friends government. Now lie. 9, I will fight corruption with the Anas principle. Is that true? 10, I will make the Kole Lagoon and Odo River a tourist site. 11, I will build a factory in every district. 12, I will give each constituency 1 million every year. 13, I will arrest the dollar. The dollar has arrested him. 14, the hikes in fuel prices will be a thing of the past. No. 16, I will make Accra the cleanest city in Africa. 16, I will build 111 hospitals, 17, 350 secondary schools, and then 18, the Almighty, will never go to the IMF for a bailout.
Thank you. Yes, Linda, what's from where you sit, and as someone who is in this field, very experienced, you sit on the board of Transparency International, what is it that we are not doing right that we should be doing so that we don't get to keep this bad position as our best for 4 years and more?
So Samson, I always say that if you're on a program with Martin, if you're not careful after the program, you'll be in trouble. Okay, so the solutions are not different. We can't actually reinvent any wheel to come and address the problem of corruption. They are what we have actually outlined in our statement. And when Martin was talking about the unexplained wealth and all that, you see, we can actually either amend or either pass the new legislation. The value will be the same if enforcement is weak. And if there is no commitment towards enforcement. And let me give you an example. So you have the SP trying the case, the NDA matter, and the person is still at post. So who has the responsibility? So then if we don't see government commitment in helping the institutions mandated by law to do their work, then we are not going anywhere. The swiftness with which the PPA matter was dealt with, some people are still at post. If government goes on to say that the La Bianca case that came up, as a result of that, the benchmark value, whatever, has been addressed, then we can see some efforts towards helping the SP, for instance, in doing their work. But the commitment is very, very low. And when you talk about...
Belinda, sorry, but this matter of the La Bianca investigations leading to reforms in the GRA, that has happened.
Yes,
so now you don't have the benchmark regime anymore, which became a tool for corruption. It doesn't exist anymore. And government is raking in more money than it used to.
So Samson, that one is good. So by the reforms, we are going to get more money. But then if I'm trying somebody else and the person is still at post, who has the power to remove the person from post for the trial to go on? It doesn't speak well. So you're talking about this grandstanding after we have actually mentioned a number of ministries in the COVID-19 report and how their ministers have, the ministries have squandered money, risk allowances and all that, and the persons are still at post. And you have not had any action from government, then you are like, why are we bothering us as far as the fight is concerned? We have actually people, the COVID-19 procurement that we paid monies and never saw the what we wanted, and the are still at post. These are the things that we don't understand. I think this week or last week, I had to talk about another president where he was able to take action after the same COVID-19 expenditure report has been conducted. Why don't we have the same story here, especially for a government that promises anti-corruption is the way to go? So for me, we are not showing much commitment. So we are talking about, for instance, in our statement, talk about the public officers, conduct of public officers bill. And we have still not passed that legislation into law. It is still, it has gone to parliament and come back from parliament. It's not still with the executive. My brother, that one can deal with asset declaration issues, can deal with conflict of interest issues, and they are the biggest issues we have. We are talking about this on explained with them going before Shraj when you are leaving office. Asset declaration law is weak.
It's Ankuma and Occupy Ghana have been writing almost every week, reminding the president of the need for things like that. An asset declaration regime which is efficient. You don't only declare, but the declaration is verified. The MPs, why can't you pass a small law that it's declare, don't put it in an envelope and put it there, nobody can open it. We want to verify it, and there should be some publication also. Because of that, and then families being brought in, or wives and others being brought in. Because of that, this thing has been sitting in Parliament for upwards of 10 years. Yes, okay, Linda, you finish your point. I'll come to him because Ajman Dia actually took the MPs on as well.
Yes, so then if you talk about, so that aside, talk about still the usage of the Auditor General's powers of disallowance and surcharge. And when you go and make reference to Domlevo, then you say you're an advocate for. I am not. I am saying that somebody has done it before. Why are you not doing it?
The government actually praised him for saving us a lot of money.
Oh, please. It's not too much to ask. Some of you know, when we talk about power corrupts and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. The powers some people have, we need those powers to do the things that we are asking for. We don't have such powers. So if, like, can you imagine if we have it? We would have done it. We are not just speaking. We are actually thinking that corruption is the main cause of our problems, the economic woes that we are currently facing. I don't have any hair to be cut, but those who say are being cut, corruption is a part of it. So we should actually all get interested in how we resolve the issue. And as I said, there is no new solution under the sun. The same thing we are talking about Parliament, after they have actually, the PAC has actually sat in on television. We've seen all these things being discussed. The recommendations are not being implemented. So for me, Parliament cannot just finish and not even refer the matters to the Attorney General for resolution. Please, we need to work as a people, and we have people put in places that they have capacity, resources to do same. We don't have. We can only shout and talk about these things, but then they also have the powers to act. Should act. Okay. Talk about the Auditor General. Okay, I said that's what. And the SP's office. Any day, any time, the act has been designed. They are not being resourced now. They are not being paid now. But we know they have gotten to some sort of agreement with states. So thank you, states, for actually helping them to get to that. We are waiting to see when the monies will start being rolled out. But whatever it is, they need an establishment fund. Nobody should say that SP's office is making too much demands. They are not as old as the Shraj, or we are not making excuses. From the little that they have gotten, they have shown you that they can actually do the work. So give them the establishment fund. A building alone does not fight corruption. Okay. Resources government gives to other organizations. I think Martin said it. We are not seeing the impact. Okay. Give the SP the fund to do the work that he needs.
Yes, let me go to Kofi Bentil now. And Kofi, you see, around the table, I can tell people's, anger, and it's not different when you go down there. But Martin Pebu will get up, Kofi Bento will get up and say, we are paying people to work. They are not working. Let's hit the streets and force them to do the work. And you see only a handful of Ghanaians show up.
Well, Samson, so we have a problem. I mean, the kind of politicians we have or get is a reflection of the kind of people we are. And I know that also because sometimes when you take some steps and you want to do some things, you'll be surprised the people who come to you and try to tell you to tone down or whatever it is. But I haven't given up hope. Listen, so I keep saying this constitution is not a failure. It has not failed. It is just that our leaders have found ways around it to continue to do the evil that they were doing in the past. To that extent, therefore, if you give the person room and you expect that by the exercise of their good sense, they will do the right thing because they have the room to do it, and they do not do it, you take off the room. Let me put it this way. Structure regulates performance, or structure regulates what people do, okay? It kind of is like the kind of structure you put a person in will determine their behavior in a certain sense. If you are going on a road and the road is a one-way road, that structure will make you go in a certain direction. And if you go back, the law will be against you. You are going to have problems. I do believe that we have certain things in our constitution which we need to strengthen if we find that our politicians will not be morally upright. So, for instance, this power of censure, all right, I pray that we continue to have a hung parliament, and I pray that in the constitutional amendment, we take out the requirement that ministers should come from parliament. What that would do is that once you enter parliament, you become a parliamentarian, you know there's no way out, that's where you're going to be, and that's where you make your name and whatever it is. Why? Because when we start with the constitutional amendment, one of the things that we should look at doing is strengthening the power of parliament to censure, one, ministers and also the president. The point is, there must be a way that makes whoever is in leadership, whether he's president or not, know that if you hit a certain point, we will bring you down. We don't have that now. We need to design something like that. We also have to know that until citizens continue to fight, we will not, or we cannot expect that leaders by themselves will elect against their own comfort and do the right thing.
My job is to pay tax so that it will be used to develop the country for me. Why should I pay the tax and now go and police the person I've paid the tax to use it well?
Because the person that you have to police is not an angel. And you have tried that person and have tried different people for 30 years. And they have shown you that they will use every opportunity to do the wrong thing. Look, we did a whole procurement act. And there was only one clause in the procurement act that says that under very strict circumstances, we can do, something.
Sourcing.
We elevate that small footnote to the whole procurement act. 90% of procurement is done that way. That is why you must police the people you put in office. The point I'm making is this. We are showing that we are not a people who can be trusted to be moral or upright in office, regardless of what we said when we were seeking the office. So let us build structures that will regulate behavior. And that is where the constitutional amendment and etc. come in. In the meantime, we need to keep fighting like you are fighting, like Martin is fighting, like I am fighting, like all of us are fighting, until we get that constitutional review done. We are not going to make that much progress. So if you leave me alone, I'll say stop everything. Let's go straight to constitutional review. And let's deal with amendments in the constitution which will make politicians and leaders afraid of people, not the other way around. Because when we give them our resources, we can expect, based on their performance, that they will abuse, misuse it, turn around and tell us things that we don't want to hear.
All right. So let's hear from Suhini to what are some of the solutions we can be talking about. And Parliament is supposed to be one of the solutions.
Yeah. Well, Samson, I am not against constitutional review. In fact, I am for constitutional review. But I get worried when we speak of it as if that is going to be all. That is going to be the solution to the problems that we face. Because the problem that we face is bigger than just text on paper. It is also attitudinal. And that is reflected in what Kofi said a while ago about the procurement law. Because when you are making the law, you are deemed to be reasonable. And so you make a provision that in certain cases, because of emergency and others, you may resort to a procedure of procurement. But attitude of the people in office have led to it being the main thing now. And that tells you that no matter how well you craft the law, if the people you put in place or in charge of affairs are deemed to be corrupt, they will find ways to go around the law. I mean, you lawyers say that sometimes the problem is when you break the law, but it is okay to bend it or to push it to its limit. And so when you have the mindset, and I'm sorry to say this, of a people that is in default corrupt, passing the right laws and, writing the fine texts alone is not enough. And that is why I said initially that I would have loved to have this discussion in 3 themes. Look, the general theme, the solution, in my view, to that is for us to perhaps reconstruct the understanding of our culture and our way of life. Linda a while ago used a proverb, Yedinam, Neyinam. Perhaps the understanding at the time that it was uttered is different today. Today, it means bribery. And it is used to justify bribery as our way of life. You have people say, everybody they chop for in worksite. And it is a normal cliche that people believe in. I mean, you have proverbs like...
Linda used it in the right context.
I know, I agree, but I'm saying...
You need to resource the OSP.
That is the right concept. But I'm telling you, when you go to the street, this is the understanding on the street. So it is used to justify even when people bribe to get their way out. You have people, I'm going to even give you one more. They say, and we'll pay royalties to ABF Fusedi, that you cannot be selling pomade and your legs will be dry. This is... Do you understand? So I'm saying that we need, and this is Samson, this is reflected in how, since independence, we have changed governments either through the ballot or through the bullet for the same reason, but yet we are still battling with that same reason without any solution.
The front pews are for the wealthy. We don't investigate where their wealth is coming from.
In fact,
we don't care.
In fact, and I have always subscribed to a saying that a people deserve the kind of government they get. So, and we are like that. We are corrupt. The evidence again is in this, what do you call it? The fourth estate.
Fourth estate, yes.
Revelation, the school placement, a cleaner, a cook. These are the people involved. Fathom a situation where the cleaner is made a CEO of a company to award a contract of, say, 2 million. You think he would take 20,000? Fathom a situation where the cook is made a DCE. So it is not just the politician, it's not just the politics, it is the people. So we need that, in my view, reconstruction of our attitude. That may take a longer time. Then when you come to the politics, you need to look at political party funding or funding of politicians in general.
The Commissioner of Inordinate Judgment Debt, Justice Yarapao, focused on this as well. He said funding, if it's not resolved, will continue to give us problem for our corruption. Because all the politicians want to build a war chest. And CDD told us how much it costs to run a successful presidential campaign.
So Samson, the attitude problem has to start from our homes. It has to start from our mosques and our churches. It has to start from our workplaces. That is where it has to start from. Then you come to the political party funding. Not just even the parties, but politicians. I mean, we all have people who, as a result of the faulty attitude I speak of, are burdened with a lot of demands that many sympathizers help us to deal with. And these sympathizers may also have an interest in government businesses.
Right.
And so when they do, and their interest clashes with the right way of doing things, they expect the politician to pay up by showing support and by showing solidarity. So when you have a clear, regulation on how parties are funded, how politicians are funded, you are able to some extent deal with conflict of interest when it arises, because that is how people take advantage of the system to corrupt it.
Thank you very much.
And finally, we need specifically to ensure that we choose parties especially led by people with the commitment to do right, knowing that they are not perfect, but with the right commitment to do right. We must support such people.
Thank you very much.
And it will always start from the head.
Newsfile is brought to you by Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years. My Way Insurance, dial *165# to on MTN to join. St. Thomas Eye Hospital, providing excellence in eye care. The Fourth Estate, that's the Media Foundation for West Africa's research-based and investigative media projects, has brought us evidence to end the yearly speculation of corruption in the computerized school selection placement system of the Ghana Education Service under the Ministry of Education. The Fourth Estate, edited by Manasseh Azore-Awene, got two of its reporters to go undercover and blew the cover of corrupt individuals selling grade A placements. 8 of them have been arrested, while 2 others, those in charge of IT, have been on the run. These 2, who are the IT guys who would have compromised the system, are the ones on the run. The Minister of Education and former Director General of the GES have commended the Fourth Estate for helping them catch more of such people. But they, that's the 2, they hold the passwords for access to grade A school placements. How soon will the minister honor his promise to identify those who did the placements, who he assures will lose their jobs and face prosecution? What else ought to be done to seal the cracks? When we mention corruption, we quickly point fingers, especially at politicians engaged in grand corruption. But these guys, the bad people at the DVLA, the courts, shop owners evading or cheating government on tax revenue, corrupt police officers, etc., must all be dealt with if the country will make progress in the fights. Joining us for this very final part of the discussion is the PRO or spokesperson for the Ministry of Education, Kwesi Kwarteng. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Samson.
Great.
And a very good morning to you.
Right. So we understand that there had been some efforts already by the ministry. Of course, the former Director General had sought for BNI or security to investigate these matters. Unfortunately, it looks like 2 attempts, all of that failed. And then there was a committee that was set up. The committee has some reports we do not know about. We don't know the details. But more importantly, what the Fourth Estate has revealed, beyond the prosecution going on in the courts, what is going to happen and how soon?
Samson, thank you once again. First of all, the Ministry of Education has taken notice of the Fourth Estate's group investigation. Of course, highlighting again on the failure or some loopholes within the school placement system. The ministry, like the minister has reiterated earlier on, would like to express gratitude to the team for providing such vital information. Of course, it is going to help strengthen the school placement process. And then we'll proceed again to study the investigative piece. And of course, all consequential decisions will be taken from there. Indeed, this challenge has been systemic because at some point, even though the placement is supposed to be computerized, there is some level of human interface or human interference in it, especially when you look at the protocol module or the protocol regime. If we look at the placement, for instance, Samson, I mean, it's categorized under automatic placement, where about 90% of the students are placed based on their eligibility and availability of placement slots in selected choices that they've made when it comes to the selection process. Beyond that, there are some students that are probably unable to make any of their 6 choices. So the computer allows that they go to a portal that is provided and make selection of their own choices. Beyond that, you have also the protocol system where 10% of declared vacancies are reserved for both the general public through the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service. And then the remaining 5% is also given to the various schools. So within the process of submitting the protocols, for instance, if you look at the school, for instance, usually what happens is that the stakeholders of the schools, the head teachers, sometimes you may have chiefs involved, you may have other community members who submit their list to the school. What the school does is to just upload the list, and then the ministry, through CSSPS and the Ghana Education Service, we accept as our protocol, their protocol. It is also possible that the remaining 5% that the Ministry of Education holds or reserve the right to distribute to the general public. Also, it is possible that Samson, you may find a very genuine case, very genuine incident where you establish a strong case for a young child to be placed in, say, a pre-sec level. At that point, too, there is also that human element in it. So the possibility is that, yes, of course, we are not immuning the ministry entirely from it, but there is also a possibility that within this true process, you may get ultimately the minister having the access or the GS boss having the access turned into a Goro boy. What it means is that somebody can come to Samson and say that, oh, well, Samson, this student needs pre-sec, or we should be able to help this student get to pre-sec. A classical case is what happened last year, where a journalist walked to the minister and may advance a case about a student who was involved in a motor accident. So for that matter, such a student ought to be placed in a day school closer to where their parents live. Clearly, the automatic process cannot do that. It will take a human interface or human intervention to do that. But how is the ministry able to establish that such a person, such journalist, probably he was compromised? It could even be that he was compromised without being aware. So yes, because there is that human interface, there is that possibility. The possibility coming from people who may deal with the ministry directly, the possibility of compromise coming from even the schools, because you have about 91 of these category A schools, and the desire of getting or being placed in those schools is very high. Especially, for instance, if you look at last year, for instance, there were about 1,500 students who had single grades but were not placed in the category A schools. And those guys feel very entitled.
Right. So, Mr. Kwati, so my question here will be, the Fourth Estate has handed these states the evidence that this is not storytelling, this is not anecdotal, this is real. Now, the 8 people who are facing prosecution, they were sort of your middlemen, or so to speak, intermediaries. It must have taken the 2 who have custody of the passwords to ensure that eventually, finally, changes would have been made for these placements. So the minister and the director general, who did they give the passwords to operate if they didn't operate it themselves? And they would clearly know who it is that made way for the fraudulent activity to go on? When are you identifying these people, and when are they joining the 8 who are standing prosecution in court?
Samson, first of all, there is a very big misconception out there because the commentary that has been run and the perception is that those 8 individuals were intermediaries and some way, somehow, they were working with the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education had rented a private facility at the Nat Hostel, which, operated as a resolution center where we were serving the general public. So it was possible that anybody could just get in, establish a case, advance the reasons why probably there has to be changes for his or her ward. Within this process, it's possible, there could be compromise. Somebody can also take your money and make a very strong case, and then without even any officer at the ministry taking money. But of course, the exploitation continues. The point I want to make is that
in this case, this is this Charlotte, or what was her name, lady, who appeared to have been sort of the kingpin, who was running the game.
Rahel.
Is it Rahel? Good. She, you see and hear in the video, in the investigative piece, talking to people on the phone and telling them how she may even have to increase, also put her own cut on the amounts that they demand that she should collect before she brings the names for the changes to be effected. She was identified to have worked at the ministry. Okay? So,
Samson, the understanding that I have from Manasseh's video is that she was a former worker with the ministry, where she used to work with the ministry's canteen. She was not even working for the ministry per se, but a private individual who was working for the ministry's canteen.
That's right.
And I am happy at this stage, especially when such a person has been identified. I am sure the security agencies should be able to even help us fish if indeed such a person was dealing directly with a person or an officer of the ministry. Of course, you are dealing with a human interface. It is possible that indeed you may even get an officer at the ministry being compromised. But to suggest that because the Minister for Education and the Director General of GES has access to Category A, so some way, somehow, they should be implicated. It's
not that they have access, but that they are the only 2 with the passwords to be able to effect the eventual change. Well, I know. Like we say in our parlance, they are big men. So they may have given the power to some officers within them to work. So they clearly can identify who it is that was effecting these changes. If they can identify that, then there was no reason. The purpose of giving the passwords to only 2 people has been defeated.
Yes, Samson. And that could only come up through thorough investigation, especially with collaboration with the security agencies. But the point I am saying is that, yes, they have the password, but for instance, earlier on, I explained the part of the schools, how they operate. For instance, if you go to, let's say, a school like Presec Level or Wesley Girls, and then deal with any of their own student or the headmaster, and your protocol is approved there, and is loaded on the ministry's page or the CSSPS platform, the only thing that whoever has access to Category A school does is to just confirm that the protocol has been accepted. So the fact that you hear somebody on phone peddling influence and suggesting that he is dealing with somebody from the ministry, I'm not sure if Samson today, I want to peddle influence with multimedia, I'm going to use the name of the security. Obviously, I'm going to use somebody who has built a reputation like you. But I'm going to use, how do you call it, a bigger person at your end. But to conclude that because somebody was...
I think we are talking about different situations here. Are we
How
not?
different, Samson?
Because 2 people are holding the password so
Yes.
that you will narrow to know who has used the password when, who has placed who when. if you are giving 5% to schools, headmasters, a headmaster of one school has 5%, which may be just 5 people. But the education ministry or service has 10% or 5% of the totality of the students who have qualified to go to school. So that's a huge number.
No, it's wrong. It's wrong education out there.
Really?
Like I stated, 90% goes to the public through the automatic placement system. The remaining 10% is distributed evenly between the Ministry of Education, which obviously is for the general public, and then the schools themselves. And I'm saying that, for instance, if you look at the model or the approach which the schools uses to upload their protocols, it doesn't go through, for instance, any quality assurance mechanism. What they do is that they just have to exhaust their quota. In exhausting their quota, what the ministry or whoever has access to the password, granted is even the Minister for Education, at least for the purpose of our discussion, have to do is just to okay it. You understand? Within the Ministry of Education, the possibilities are that I am turned into a Guru boy, in 10 turns the minister into a Guru boy, and then he facilitates whatever, protocol that has been submitted to him. Obviously, if you are calling for auditing purposes to be able to identify person A, person B, the Ministry of Education has already earlier on noticed that, put a notice that we are very open to that. And that will obviously come out through police investigation, especially now that through the assistance of Manasta, some arrests have been able to make.
Okay.
What it means is that such a person should be able to mention whoever he contacted at the ministry, if indeed it was the ministry. But I'm saying that there is also a possibility that the person might have also dealt with an institution. Again, the person could have even gone to the resolution center, presented a very good case, and his issue has been resolved without paying a dime to anybody. So I am happy that such a person has been arrested, and ultimately investigation is going to establish.
Okay, so my very final question to you, Mr. Kwarteng, is this. Because you are so concerned and you are happy and have welcomed this evidence presented to you by the Fourth Estate, what are you doing? For example, are you working with the Cybersecurity Authority so that they can identify who is it that went into the system to do what, if that is what you have to do, because it's supposed to be, a no-brainer that if the password and the back end can only be entered by 2 people who have the passwords, then it should be easy to identify who was working with this syndicate. So what are you doing? Are you doing something? What is it that you are doing?
Those who had access to the Category A school, which happens to be the Minister for Education, the Ghana Education Service Board does not have access to the back end. I am sure now that there has been arrest, we should be able to access the back end through cyber auditing, and then make a conclusion and establish where indeed such a protocol came from.
Are you doing that? Are you pursuing that, cyber auditing, to get these other people? Otherwise, you are not solving the problem.
Yes, Samson, first of all, before I even go to the cyber auditing, you see, the larger problem stems from the fact that students usually who get single grades and particularly feels entitled and are very desirous of getting placement in any of the Category A schools, the tradition or what we've seen with time is that a lot of times they miss out. Last year, for instance, about 1,500 of them miss out. But we've noticed that if the person misses out on Achimota and you give an option of, let's say, Opokuare, such a person may take such an opportunity. If the person misses Yas Antoine and you give St. Louis, such a person will embrace such an opportunity. So what the Minister for Education has done, even before we go into the cyber issues, is that we've introduced the classer system, which is going to give access or more opportunities to students who get better grades in getting entry into the Category A school. So what it means is that you are going to reduce the numbers of students that will feel entitled but desirous to go into the Category A schools. Thereby, you are going to reduce the rate of exploitation. But on the substantive matter that you asked about the cybersecurity issue, yes, the ministry itself even instituted an investigative committee. We commissioned an investigative committee. The work of the committee was to come out with...
And in 30 seconds, what does that report say? Who are behind it?
Yeah, the report, just like any institution where you have periodic reviews, recommendations, is just to strengthen up the system. Obviously, also
what does it say?
Oh, like I'm saying, it's to strengthen up the system and in addressing or closing up the loopholes, at the same time liaising with the relevant institutions and making sure that the system is well strengthened to prevent abuse and exploitation.
All right. Chris Kwatin, thank you very much for joining us. I'll get my guests to give us only a minute each commentary on this because we are run out of time. Yes, Kofi Bento.
On this computer placement thing, again, because of time, I'll go straight to the point. I would always defend the minister's right to have the password because at that level, he must have that discretion. But there's a certain responsibility, which I think is also reasonable for us to require of him. The ultimate solution, I think, for this thing is transparency. Very clear transparency. And when I say transparency, this is what I mean. When we did O-level, we had index numbers. When the results came out, we all trooped to WAEC. It was posted on the wall. You look at your index number, you know the grades you got. If you pass, you jubilate. If you fail, you go quietly. In the same way, today they have index numbers. All the placements, that is 100% of the placements, can be put on the website. There is automatic placement. If it is done, you can go and look, you know where you've been placed. And then all the discretionary placements, however they are made by headmasters or the minister, should also be put there and coded as discretionary. So everybody that the Minister of Finance or the Minister of Education posted should be there, and it should be clear that the Minister of Education posted this person. So that if Manasseh or yourself or any journalist, the right to information, wants to query, they can query that posting, and the minister will give a good reason why that person has been posted there.
All right.
The problem we have is that there's a black box approach where some of these things are done and nobody is accounted, gives any account for it. So for me, there's a lot to say about this, but I think that transparency will cure a lot. Put all the postings there and let it be clear whether the person was posted automatically or posted by the minister or posted by a headmaster or a chief.
Right.
I think then right to information will take care of it.
So we're told that Ataku4 Senior and Ataku4 Junior, the lab technicians, IT experts, they are on the run. Obviously, these guys should have the capacity to compromise the system. But is it not fair to expect that those who have the passwords at least should be telling us that this is what we know has happened about the breach? Absolutely.
So as much as I agree with Kofi that transparency will cure the thing, I do not think that the issue at stake here is lack of transparency. It is maybe to some extent, it is only the discretion or the decision of the ministry not to be transparent on this matter. And as much as I commend Fourth Estate, and I commend them for this work, I would have wished that they resolved that issue of who logged on and ensured that the 20,000 payment or 8,000 payment candidate was placed in that school.
You're sure they could get to that?
Well, I'm saying that, yes, I don't fault them for not getting that, but I'm saying that
is for the one who has power at the back end to tell.
Exactly, but I'm saying that if you did, for example, an audit of the system, even as we speak now, if the ministry wants to tell us who logged on that particular day, that the 8,500 Ghana cedis, student was placed, they can do that. They can do an audit of the system, and you will find the footprints of who logged in at what time, which date, and the name of the student that was placed. We can find out who did that.
We understand the minister will appear before you to take some questions.
Yes, absolutely. And so when we do, we will then know if it was the minister or the director general, because we are told they are the only two people with the authority to give such approvals. So if it is the minister will then be explaining to us why he granted that. Was he part of the deal or was he misled? If it is the director general, he should be telling us why he gave that approval. Was he part of the deal where was the syndicate working for him, or he was misled? Because maybe they would have taken the money and used a different story to convince the minister or the director general to make that approval. It is possible.
Or that they gave these passwords to their PAs because they are busy. It
is also possible.
And they decided to corrupt
it. Also corrupt it. So I'm saying that the lack of transparency in this matter is deliberate. I mean, because as we speak, if we want to know who logged onto the system between the minister and the director, or who gave the authority, or whose authority was used to log in onto the system, we can establish that now by just doing an audit of the system. And we'll find the footnote of the people.
Kweku Nchibu Esiako says that Kwesi Kwarteng said a lot without saying anything to answer the specific questions as to who actually used their passwords to effect the changes in the system.
Sam, I think you've said it all. I just want to say thank you to Joy FM for this NDA matter. It's your case. If you hadn't given this case traction...
We're not talking NDA.
No, the NDA, let's say give thanks when thanks are due. And Sam, you personally, I think we should, so that, and then this corruption matter, so that society will see that we need to do a lot more. Third comment, I want Ghanaians to read the human rights fight that Albert Einstein, professor of physics, engaged in. He did a lot on human rights, so it's not just physics. So I want people in our society, the professors, the doctors, all the knowledgeable people to get up and let's get into this fight together to save our nation.
Mrs. Linda Oforekwafo, in 30 seconds, this committee that was set up by the education minister, should they be revealing the content of their report to us?
They should be. I think you know, Kofi talked about transparency, Honorable talked about transparency. They should be. We have moved beyond, and I agree with the test that you've received. The spokesperson, Mr. Kwarteng, has not given us much information. I'm sure by now they know who did that, and they should be telling us who did that and what sanctions are going to be meted out to that person. Because when we prevent any kind of fraud or corruption from happening, and it does happen, then the next stage is investigation and sanctioning. And for me, by next week, you should know who did what and who is going to be sanctioned for what. And it is the minister. He's a minister. He's a human being. Everybody who does anything wrong in this country should be sanctioned. And I think the man...
Thank you very much, and congratulations to the Fourth Estate. Continue doing this kind of journalism to help this country, even to the point of the collaboration. They get to a point, and I'm even afraid, if they are talking to police, won't somebody blow their cover, and then the guys will run away, and they are getting change. Police team is giving to them. The next day, the team is withdrawn, and then they are asked to report to Ministry's police station. Now, you say they should get to whose password has been breached, or whatever. If they, by the time they get there, they are supposed to disclose. If they disclose,
no, but you see, sometimes
the people are your people,
undercover investigation can also lead to us getting the person.
We have run out of time.
I mean, they could even
my outfit, as always, is by Habel Scooter.
We are not talking.
You can find them at Adjeringano, Gates, East Legon. You can call them 0200 84 19 88. My guests have been Kofi Bentel, Martin Pebu, Alhassan S. Suhini, Linda Oforekwafo, and then Kwesi Kwarteng of the Education Ministry. How well is Ghana positioned for the next Olympic Games in France? How well is Ghana making use of the one-year postponement of hosting the Africa Games? Join Nathaniel Atto. He's got love for sports as he engages the president of the Ghana Olympic Committee on these issues and more on your Joy Sports link. There will also be analysis of the transfers by transfer of Ghanaian players in the January transfer window in Europe. Don't miss it. I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini. Have a good afternoon. Thanks for your company.